We found Bigfoot, or at least some evidence of Bigfoot. We are at Salt Lake City Comic-Con right here with Redcastle Productions, Scott and Isaac, two of the producers of an upcoming show. Now let's talk a little bit about what you're doing.
It's a documentary just focusing on Utah Bigfoot sightings. So it's going to be called Utah's Bigfoot, and we're just looking for everybody who's had experiences with with Bigfoot, specifically in Utah for this one.
Yeah, because there's a lot of experiences here in Utah. Anyway, so now what made you come up with this idea? You guys have your own personal experiences or know people that have had experiences?
My uncle actually had an experience up at his trout farm up in North Ogden where they found tracks, and this is actually a replica of the actual Bigfoot prints found there at the trout farm. And then the following year up in the Uintas, he had an experience where him and a bunch of other scouts saw Bigfoot walking around a lake up there. So we heard these stories and we kind of got the idea, you know what, let's make a full feature-length documentary, do reenactments, interviews, all that kind of stuff, and so yeah.
That's awesome, and I had my own personal experience, so I may be on this documentary. Who knows if I can pass the first initial audition. So now, when are you hoping to get this released? Are you guys doing fundraising? What are you guys doing now?
Yeah, we're kind of doing some fundraising right now. We filmed some of it already, but plan to have it all done and ready for release by next fall of 2014.
And how can people find out about it?
They can either check out our YouTube page, which is just YouTube/Redcastle Productions. And then also on Facebook, we have a Redcastle Productions page, and we're always updating it with new clips and different things like that.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Salt Lake City Comic-Con 2013. We found Bigfoot. Hi.
How are you?
We met at WonderCon.
Oh, okay.
I did an awesome interview with you. But I didn't get a chance to ask you some questions, so I'm going to do it again.
Sure, no worries.
Richard Hatch, second interview, huge fan. Now, when the original series ended, I followed it from the start. I remember the first episode. Was there anything that you took off of the set that you still have? Or anything from the original show?
Well, you have to understand that when we did the original show, we actually thought we were coming back the following year.
Yeah.
Or maybe even a few months later.
Yeah.
So nobody took anything because we didn't think it was the end. So, here was this series that reached 65 million people. We were in the top 20. We're the highest rated sci-fi show, and we were probably the 6th rated first-time show, first year show, the highest rated. So we thought, no problem, they'll bring us back. Never thinking that maybe the budget constraints, the time it took to shoot the show might get in the way of ABC bringing us back. So nobody thought about picking anything up. And at that time, we didn't think of props and costumes as collectibles. Yeah. So nobody picked up anything. And I think after the show actually was cut, there was a bunch of collectors that actually drove up to the back lot of Universal and picked up all that stuff free of charge. And the difference between then and now is that the new show, they hired somebody, a good friend of mine, Alex Peters, who has an auction company, and they brought in this great team. They took all the props, all the costumes, all the ships, all the hardware, and they put it all together and they sold it. And Universal made a really nice profit off of all that stuff. And again, on the second show, they knew what they had. So I don't think too many people got to walk off that set with anything valuable, although maybe a few of the actors were able to walk out of there and hide a few things. I don't know. But it wasn't like the first show. We had no idea what we had.
So now, if you could go back and you could grab one thing, what would be the one thing you would take?
Well, definitely. I would have brought my costume. I thought those flight jackets were definitely cool.
For 1970s, it was awesome. It was just
it was still awesome even today. I know. I still like the original outfits that we had on Battlestar. Those boots, motorcycle boots. It was pasted together from a lot of different things, but it just had a really, really cool look to it.
Well, and I think that sci-fi is one of the coolest things about sci-fi is when you take smaller pieces and you put it all together to create something.
It becomes something, right?
It becomes something, yeah.
If you zeroed your camera in sometimes on the sets, you might see plastic cups, things that people just pulled from here and there and painted and made it look like something, You do whatever you have to do, right, to save money and to make it work. But I also think I would have taken some of those computers that we actually had on the original set were actually real computers.
Oh, wow.
And they were futuristic versions of it, meaning these are computers that had not even come out on the market yet. Oh, wow. And during lunchtime, we had all these games that the company was testing out. So nobody would leave for lunch. We'd all sit down in that big 3-tier control room of the Galactica, which was, I think, one of the most amazing bridges of all time. No one's ever recreated the size and scope of that bridge. But we'd all be playing computer games, before it went out to the marketplace and the world discovered all these computer games.
Like the old football one?
Oh, football. I used to remember firing missiles up.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
I mean, there was just some really, really fun games. But the other thing I think I would have taken is the helmet. I would have definitely taken the helmet. What else? I would have taken the gun, the cool laser gun we had, and then maybe driven off if I could have gotten a U-Haul, taken off one of the life-size versions of the Viper. I wouldn't have mind taking off one of those things.
Now, getting ready for Salt Lake Comic-Con, I've been watching some of the old episodes again. My all-time favorite is still Red Eye.
Yeah.
What was your favorite episode?
My favorite episode was the very first episode. I think was one of the best. The original movie, Battlestar Galactica. I love that a lot. Obviously, Jane Seymour was in that.
Yeah.
But I think that one, the ones with Lloyd Bridges.
Yeah.
Playing Kane.
Kane. Yeah.
Those are some of my favorite stories. And then the final episode, Hand of God. That's one of my favorite episodes as well, when you kind of have the transmission come from Eagle Landing, coming over the computer after we walk out of that the
observation
room that we were in. I love that story. And, I love some of the other ones, but those were my favorite ones. And I also like the Count Ibley episodes, there was several episodes that were my favorite, but that first epic episode that debuted the show is probably my all-time favorite.
Thank you so much, Richard. It was a pleasure to meet you again. Thanks. Good. So now I just have a quick question for you. You've done a lot of these conventions. You've been involved in the comic industry for years. What is some advice you could give to kids today that are getting into this? I mean, we want them to be healthy, and this tends to be kind of an industry where the kids kind of sit and don't get out. What is some advice as someone like you to these kids that are getting into it now?
Well, I'm glad I'm over here because of my physicality, it motivates people because I live a healthy lifestyle. Yeah. And also, you read comics about superheroes that generates power, positive, excitement, and the determination. That's why when they come to a show like this, they see all that, and that affects their life. That's what they should do, because we need to keep people and kids away from drugs and heavy drugs, sex, violence, and alcohol.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Lou. Thank you.